June 14th, 1946, 7:30 p.m. Charlie's Steakhouse, 52nd Street, Manhattan. Bumpy Johnson walked in with 3 business associates, well-dressed, respectful, trying to have dinner. The owner, Charles Whitmore, stopped them at the door. "I'm sorry, but we have a policy. We don't serve your kind here. There are plenty of places in Harlem for you." Bumpy's associates started to argue. Bumpy stopped them, looked at Whitmore, spoke softly. "Mr. Whitmore, how much is your mortgage on this building?" Whitmore was confused. "What?" "That's none of your business," Bumpy smiled. "It will be. In 11 days, I'll own this restaurant, and the first thing I'll do is serve dinner right here at this table." "To my kind," Whitmore laughed. "Thought it was a joke?" It wasn't. 11 days later, Bumpy Johnson owned the building, and Charles Whitmore was washing dishes in his own former restaurant for minimum wage. This is the story of how you don't refuse to serve a king without losing your kingdom. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand what 1946 America looked like. World War II had just ended. Black soldiers were coming home after fighting for freedom overseas. But in America, they still couldn't eat at certain restaurants, couldn't stay at certain hotels, couldn't sit at certain counters. Segregation wasn't just in the South, it was everywhere, and in New York City it was often unwritten but strictly enforced. Charlie's Steakhouse was one of those places. High-end restaurant, white tablecloths, live piano music, expensive cuts of beef. It catered to Manhattan's elite, businessmen, lawyers, doctors, all white. The policy was never written down, never advertised, but everyone knew. This was a white establishment. Black people weren't welcome, not as customers, only as kitchen staff or janitors. Charles Whitmore had owned Charlie's for 12 years. He'd built it from nothing, worked his way up from line cook to owner. He was proud of his restaurant, proud of his clientele, and he believed, genuinely believed, that mixing races in his establishment would drive away his white customers. This was business, nothing personal. That's what he told himself. Bumpy Johnson was 41 years old in 1946. He'd recently been released from prison. He was rebuilding his operations in Harlem, but he was also trying to live with dignity, trying to exist in a world that constantly reminded him he was considered less than human because of his skin color. That night, June 14th, Bumpy had legitimate business in Midtown, a meeting with potential investors. He'd invited 3 associates, all well-educated black businessmen. After the meeting, they decided to have dinner, celebrate a successful negotiation. They walked into Charlie's Steakhouse at 7:30 p.m. The hostess saw them coming. Her face went pale. She looked at Whitmore, who was near the bar. Whitmore walked over quickly. "Gentlemen, can I help you?" "We'd like a table for 4, Bumpy said politely. Whitmore's smile was apologetic, but firm. "I'm sorry, but we have a policy. We don't serve your kind here. There are plenty of places in Harlem for you." The restaurant went quiet. Other diners were watching, some with sympathy, most with approval. This was normal. This was expected. One of Bumpy's associates, a lawyer named Thomas, stepped forward. "That's illegal. The Civil Rights Act of 1875 prohibits discrimination in public accommodations." Whitmore's smile didn't falter. That act was overturned in 1883. "And even if it wasn't, this is a private establishment. We reserve the right to refuse service." Bumpy put his hand on Thomas's shoulder. Stopping the argument, he looked at Whitmore, studied him. "Mr. Whitmore, how much is your mortgage on this building?" Whitmore blinked, confused by the question. "What?" "That's none of your business," Bumpy smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "It will be. In 11 days, I'll own this restaurant, and the first thing I'll do is serve dinner right here at this table, to my kind." Whitmore laughed, actually laughed. "You think you can buy this building? Do you have any idea what it's worth?" "I know exactly what it's worth," Bumpy said quietly, "and I know exactly what you owe on it, and I know that in 11 days you won't be able to pay." He buttoned his jacket. "Gentlemen, let's go. We'll eat somewhere that appreciates our business." As they walked out, Whitmore was still smiling, shaking his head. His hostess asked, "Who was that?" "I don't know," Whitmore said. "Some Harlem gangster trying to sound tough. Forget about it." But Whitmore didn't forget about it. because over the next 11 days, his entire world fell apart, and every single piece of destruction traced back to that moment when he refused to serve 4 black men. June 15th, 1946, Day 1. Saturday morning. Whitmore's food suppliers didn't show up. The meat delivery, the vegetables, the bread, nothing. Whitmore called the suppliers. "What's going on?" "We're sorry, Mr. Whitmore, but we can no longer service your account." "Why not?" "We found other clients." Whitmore was furious. He'd worked with these suppliers for years. He called his backup suppliers. Same answer. "We're fully booked, can't take on new clients." What Whitmore didn't know was that every supplier he used did business in Harlem, and Bumpy Johnson had quietly reached out to each one, made them an offer. "Stop delivering to Charlie's Steakhouse and I'll double my orders with you." The suppliers did the math. Bumpy's operations fed hundreds of people daily. Whitmore's restaurant served maybe 80 customers a night. The choice was obvious. By Saturday night, Whitmore had to close early. He didn't have enough food to serve a full menu. June 16th to 18th, 1946. Days 2 through 4. Monday through Wednesday. Whitmore scrambled. He found new suppliers, paid premium prices, got the restaurant running again. But then the inspectors came. Health department, fire department, building inspectors, all within 3 days. They found violations, rat droppings in the basement, mold behind the kitchen walls, expired fire extinguishers, faulty wiring. Were the violations real? Yes, every building in Manhattan had violations if you looked hard enough. But inspectors usually gave warnings, called ahead, let owners fix problems quietly. Not this time. The health inspector shut down the kitchen immediately. The fire inspector red-tagged 2 exits. The building inspector found code violations that required expensive repairs. Whitmore had to close for 4 days, lose thousands in revenue, pay for emergency repairs. He was bleeding money. And he had no idea why every inspector in New York suddenly cared about his restaurant. What Whitmore didn't know was that Bumpy had friends in city government, people who owed him favors. A phone call here, a suggestion there, and suddenly inspectors who'd ignored Charlie's Steakhouse for years were doing their jobs properly. Everything was by the book, every violation was legitimate, but the timing was devastating. June 19th to 22nd, 1946, days 5 through 8, Thursday through Sunday. Whitmore reopened. Business was slow. Word had spread about the closures. Customers were nervous. Maybe the food wasn't safe. Maybe the restaurant was in decline. Revenue dropped 40%. But worse was coming. Whitmore's landlord called. "We need to talk about your lease." "What about it?" "The building's been sold. The new owner wants to renegotiate terms." Whitmore panicked. Sold? To who? The landlord wouldn't say. Just that Whitmore's rent was doubling, effective immediately. Whitmore couldn't afford that. He was already behind on payments from the closure. He called his lawyer. "Can they do this?" The lawyer read the lease. "Technically, yes. The new owner has the right to adjust terms. Who's the new owner?" The lawyer made some calls, came back with a name. A holding company. Continental Properties, owned by a man named Ellsworth Johnson. Whitmore's blood went cold. Ellsworth Johnson. Bumpy Johnson. It wasn't a coincidence. Bumpy had bought the building. Or rather, Bumpy had bought the debt on the building. The original landlord had been struggling financially. Bumpy's associates had approached him quietly, offered to buy out his mortgage. The landlord had taken the deal. And now, Bumpy controlled the property. June 23rd, 1946, Day 9, Monday. Whitmore's bank called. There was a problem with his business loan. What problem? The bank had concerns about his ability to repay. They were calling the loan due. Whitmore argued, "I've never missed a payment." "That's true," the banker said, "but your business has had significant setbacks recently. The closures, the violations. We need to protect our investment." Whitmore had 48 hours to pay $35,000. He didn't have it. Whitmore called everyone he knew, asked for loans, extensions, help. Nobody would touch him. Everyone said the same thing. "Your business is failing. It's too risky." Whitmore didn't understand. 2 weeks ago, Charlie's Steakhouse was thriving. Now it was on the verge of bankruptcy. How did this happen so fast? June 24th, 1946, Day 10, Tuesday. Whitmore couldn't pay the bank, couldn't make rent, couldn't afford repairs. He had one option: bankruptcy, foreclosure, lose everything. He sat in his empty restaurant that night, alone. The piano was silent. The tables were empty. His staff had quit. Nobody wanted to work at a failing business. Whitmore realized something. This wasn't bad luck. This was orchestrated, and he knew exactly who orchestrated it. June 25th, 1946, day 11, Wednesday, the foreclosure auction. The restaurant, the equipment, the lease, everything went up for sale. Only one bidder showed up. Continental Properties. They bought it all for $40,000, below market value, but nobody else was willing to risk it. The restaurant had a reputation now. Cursed, failing, not worth the investment. That evening, Bumpy Johnson walked into what used to be Charlie's Steakhouse. Charles Whitmore was still there, packing his personal belongings. He looked up, saw Bumpy. His face was a mixture of anger and defeat. "You did this." "Yes," Bumpy said simply. "How?" "How did you do all this in 11 days? Bumpy pulled out a chair. "Sat down. Would you like to know?" Whitmore nodded. He needed to understand. Bumpy spoke calmly. "You refused to serve me because of my skin color. That's your right, I suppose. But actions have consequences. I own your suppliers because I feed Harlem. I know your inspectors because I work with city officials. I bought your building because I have capital. And I know your banker because I've helped finance his projects. Everything I did was legal. Everything I did was business, just like you said." He leaned forward. "The difference is, I didn't underestimate you because of your race. You underestimated me because of mine." Whitmore's hands were shaking. "What happens now?" "Now," Bumpy said, "I own this building. I'm going to reopen this restaurant. Keep the name, keep the reputation, but we're going to serve everyone. Black, white, everyone." He stood up. "And Charles, if you need a job, I'm hiring. The kitchen needs a dishwasher, minimum wage." Whitmore looked at him in disbelief. "You're offering me a job? Washing dishes? In my own restaurant?" "In my restaurant now," Bumpy corrected. "But yes, I believe everyone deserves a chance to earn an honest living, even people who've made mistakes." Whitmore wanted to refuse, wanted to walk away with his pride, but he had no money, no prospects, no options. He took the job. For 3 years, Charles Whitmore washed dishes at Charlie's Steakhouse, under new management, serving integrated customers, and every night Bumpy Johnson would come in, sit at the same table where he was refused service, order a steak, and Whitmore would see him through the kitchen window, a reminder, every single night. In 1949, Whitmore left, moved to Philadelphia, opened a small diner, integrated from day one. People asked him why he insisted on serving everyone. Whitmore would say, "I learned a lesson once, about dignity, about respect, about underestimating people. Cost me everything. I won't make that mistake again." The story of Charlie's Steakhouse became legend, not because Bumpy destroyed a racist restaurant owner, but because he did it without violence. He used economics, used leverage, used the system, and in doing so, he proved something important. Years later, a journalist asked Bumpy about Whitmore, asked if he felt guilty for destroying a man's life. Bumpy shook his head. "I didn't destroy his life. He destroyed his own life when he chose discrimination over dignity. I just made sure there were consequences." The journalist pressed. "But you took everything from him." "No," Bumpy said. "I took his restaurant, his pride, his illusion of superiority. But I gave him something more valuable, a lesson, and I gave him a job, more than he did for me." That's the genius of what Bumpy did. He could have burned the restaurant down, could have physically harmed Whitmore, could have made it violent, but that would have made Whitmore a victim, would have confirmed every stereotype about black criminality. Instead, Bumpy used business, used capitalism, used the same system that Whitmore thought protected him, and in 11 days proved that economic power matters more than racial prejudice. The first integrated meal served at Charlie's Steakhouse happened on June 26, 1946. Bumpy Johnson sat at the table where he'd been refused service 11 days earlier. He ordered a steak, medium rare, and he ate surrounded by a mixed crowd, black and white, together, and Charles Whitmore, wearing a dishwasher's apron, watched through the kitchen window. Understanding finally that you can refuse to serve a man dinner, but you can't refuse him dignity. And when you try, you might lose everything. If this story moved you, subscribe. Drop a like if you understand that economic power is the ultimate equalizer. Share this with someone who needs to know that justice doesn't always require violence. And in the comments, tell me what would you have done in Bumpy's position. More legendary stories coming next. Don't miss them.